Good evening, everyone. Speaking about the Yosef's preferential treatment that he receives from his father. His father has altogether 12 shvatim, 12 tribes, and Yosef somehow, he loves him the most. Also, like Sinus Pasem, he makes a special coat for him. And in those days, it was a tremendous amount of work that went into making this type of coat. There were different colors, and at that time, at that point in history, everything was just made one color. Here it was multicolored coat. It was something that was very, very difficult. But Yaakov, in having that extra love for Yosef, allocated that time to make this beautiful coat for him. To top it off, the Shvatim are watching this. They're seeing this preferential treatment being given to Yosef. And Yosef also tells the father, goes back to the father many times and tells him all the bad things that they're doing. So he tells them about Ever Menachai, they're ripping off a limb off an animal and they're eating that limb. They don't shech the animal. They are not treating the other brothers, the brothers that were born from the maidservants. They're not treating them properly. And he tells them all kinds of lashon hara. And he's doing this again and again, finally to a point of lo yochlu daber l'shalom. They couldn't face him anymore. That was it. They were so annoyed with him that at that point they didn't want to look at him. Comes the day where Yaakov knows that the other tribes went to take care of the sheep, and he wants to find out what's going on with them, how they're doing. So he sends Yosef out. And Yosef comes, and as they spot him from a distance, what do they say? Here is this dreamer. He's coming again. Who knows what he's going to concoct this time? Who knows what he's going to bring back to our father? They are fed up with him. And they decide that they're going to kill him. They're going to murder him. And there ensues an argument. What should we do with Yosef? Some say, let's kill him. Some say, no, how could you kill him? Finally, they come to some kind of compromise. They're going to throw him into a pit. Now, this pit that they're going to throw him into had snakes and scorpions in there. He wasn't going to survive anyways. So in effect, what they wanted to do is they wanted to kill him. Now, we read this story every single year, and it seems normal. No, they wanted to sell Yosef. They couldn't get along with him. They wanted to sell him. But where else in history do you have brothers that plot to kill one of the brothers, sell him? Where else do you have this? Of a brother turning on another brother to a point where they want to kill him. And not only that, to magnify this, you're talking about the Shivtei Ka. These are the tribes that are going to build Israel, that are going to build Klal Yisrael, which means to say that they had a special Kedusha, they had a special holiness. These are the ones that produced altogether 70, that went down to Mitzrayim, that were in Mitzrayim for 210 years, that come out of Mitzrayim with 600,000. That's just men from the age of 20 to 60, but altogether 3 million Jews altogether. So these are the ones that are building Klal Yisrael, and you're telling me that they're jealous. They're jealous, they're upset at Yosef, and they're ready to murder him for that. You would expect it maybe from lowlifes. You would expect it from animals. But you're talking about the Shvatim over here. You're talking about the highest form of a human being. How can we understand that? We know that what ends up happening is they sell him, they take him out of the pit, they sell him to the Ishmaelim. He ends up in Mitzrayim. And years later, after he ends up in Mitzrayim, when they come down to seek food, what happens? They get into trouble. They get into trouble, and they get into trouble with Yosef. They don't know that it's Yosef. And at some point they say, Aval ashemim alachnu. You know what? All this is our fault. We're the ones that caused all this. Why? Bischaneno elenu v'lo shamanu. He was begging us. He was begging us. He was sitting there. He was crying, the Medrash says. He was begging for his life from his brothers. V'lo shamanu, we didn't listen. We ignored him. But it seems like they're zeroing in on that aspect, that he was begging us. In other words, we did the right thing, we sold him, we did the right thing, but there was a problem over here. He was begging us. It's very hard in the emotions to fathom that here you have one, the youngest brother, and he's begging for his life, and yet they feel like, no, he's got to be sold. In order to understand what really went on over here, we have to go back to when Klal Yisroel was created. Klal Yisroel was formed into a nation, all the way from Avraham Avinu. But we have to remember, who did Avraham Avinu come from? Avraham Avinu came from Terach. Who was Terach? Terach was an individual that worshipped idols, meaning to say that Avraham Avinu came from a person, emerged from a person with total impurities. That's where Avraham Avinu came from. And we know what happened. What happened was Avraham Avinu, after being born at an age of 3, he begins to question and try to figure out what is running and what is governing this world. And he comes to the recognition at 3 years old that there's God in the world, and God controls everything. And by the time he's 40, he comes to the full realization that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in charge of every aspect and every nuance in this world. Later in life, God appears to Avram. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Avram Avinu, listen, I'm going to create a nation from you. A nation that's going to be my treasure. A nation that I'm going to have my focus on this nation. A nation that will later receive the Torah. And will sanctify my name down here in this world. But what happens to Avram? Avram Avinu gives birth, through marrying Hagar, gives birth to Yishmael. I ask you a question, such a person that fought so hard, that put his entire kochot, his entire koich, his entire energy for God, produces a child like Yishmael, produces the lowest of the low, produces a child that up till today was struggling because of this Yishmael. The Jewish nation struggles because of him. Avram, you're the holiest of the holy. How do you produce such a child? What happens? And the answer is, because Avram Avinu came from a very impure place. Avram Avinu was carrying with him all this impurity. And to get rid of this impurity, and to be prepared to bring to this world the holy neshama, he had to produce Yishmael. Yishmael, which embodied all the impurities inside of Avraham Avinu. And he had to get rid of it, and he got rid of it through Yishmael. But then came Yitzchak. Yitzchak, Yishmael, was born before Avraham Avinu had a bris milah. Later, Yitzchak is born. Yitzchak is born only after the bris milah. I had the zchut this morning to do a brit milah, to do a bris milah on one of my good friend's children. Baruch Hashem. But Yitzchak comes from this beautiful, totally different Avraham Avinu. He's now pure. But even Yitzchak is not completely pure. And Yitzchak, which moves a lot closer produces an Esav. Yitzchak is producing an Esav. Why? Because he's not completely pure. Esav is not as bad as Yishmael. Yishmael comes from Hagar. Yishmael is completely impure. Esav is already a step closer. He comes from Rivka. He comes from the Holy Mother. But Yitzchak still possesses impurities. And to get rid of those impurities, he produces an Esav. And later, what's the second child? The second child is actually Yaakov. Yaakov then has to try to get the Bechorah. Yaakov has to try to get the firstborn. Tries to get it from Esav. But in all actuality, Yitzchak now gets rid of his impurities through Esav. And now he produces a child, Yaakov, and Yaakov is completely pure. There's no vestige of impurity with Yaakov. And Yaakov produces the 12 tribes, which now the entire Jewish nation is going to come from. The 12 tribes, the entire Jewish nation is now going to emerge. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Avram Avinu, Ki beYitzchak yikar lechazara. With Yitzchak, you're going to continue the Jewish nation. And then Yitzchak, Yaakov is the one to continue the Jewish nation. Yosef scares the brothers, because the brothers think to themselves that maybe perhaps Yaakov also possesses some impurities. And if Yaakov possesses impurities, maybe those impurities are coming to us. Maybe what Yosef is doing, Yosef is constantly speaking to his father. Yosef is the favorite child. What does that mean? That perhaps we are the ones that possess many of the impurities. But they don't believe that. Because they believe Shema Yisroel, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, God is one. They believe that they're not part of the impurity. They believe that they're only part of the holiness. That is who they are. And therefore, they become very, very upset with Yosef. Because what is Yosef in effect trying to do? Yosef is trying to cut them off. Yosef is trying to produce from them maybe a lower Esav, a lower Yishmael. But they want to be part of Klal Yisrael. They want to be the ones that are the building blocks of Klal Yisrael. So they feel that Yosef is actually threatening their connection with God, which means to say he's threatening their very, very existence. And they sit and they make a din Torah. And then we're making this din Torah, they come to a very exact conclusion. We have to get rid of this guy. This guy is what's called a rodef. Rodef means if somebody's chasing you and wants to kill you, you got to kill him first. And this is many times the halacha. This halacha applies in many cases. For example, a mother that's pregnant and there's a little child inside of her, and this child is threatening her life. Then what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to kill that child and not threaten the mother's life. Why? Because it's like he's chasing her and he's going to kill her. And the same thing over here. Yosef, they felt Yosef is chasing them and Yosef is going to be the one to actually kill the Shvatim, kill them spiritually. And therefore they felt they were obligated to get rid of him.